Now playing California Triathlon Soup.
Welcome to the second episode of California Triathlon Soup. This week's guests are three-time off-road triathlon world champion Lesley Paterson and Dr. Simon Marshall, who is her lovely, lovely husband.
Yeah, my better half.
Exactly.
Simon and Lesley are both pretty cheeky, as you guys are going to find out. And luckily, Eric, who is doing production for this piece, will have the bleep button on high alert. I can tell you.
Excellent. I'm just fucking pissed off.
Hey, stop it already. Look, I warned her. Like, you have to be at least 3 minutes in before you let them loose. And she's already started. I'll keep tabs on at this end, Tom. Don't worry.
Absolutely. Well, Lesley, so this last year I was very fortunate to take the family to Scotland. We were at Leeds for ITU Leeds, and we were up in Scotland, and we happened to go to Edinburgh, and we were in Glasgow, and in the middle we stopped by and saw your mom and got to see where she lives and the town that you grew up in. You should talk a little bit about that and how that sort of impacted you as you were on your path.
First off, I'm going to have to teach you how to say the word, the city Edinburgh. It's Edinburgh. Come on, Tom.
Edinburgh. Did I get that?
Anyways, growing up in Scotland was, it was amazing. I had a great childhood in so much as, really supportive parents of anything that I wanted to do. But I think more importantly, the mindset in Scotland is very much just get out and do it. You're not supposed to moan about anything. You just crack on. So that's, and definitely that sort of underdog mentality, which has kind of put me in a good place, right? I'm never scared to fight back. I'm always giving something a go. And I grew up in a kind of hardy, dealing with adversity type environment. So that created in me, immense drive and ability to just keep going, no matter what. So, when I moved to the States, it was in 2002. It was pretty intriguing to me to see certainly the way that Californians go about their business. I'd say now I've got a nice amalgamation between the overt confidence that Californians have and a little bit of humbleness from my Scottish heritage.
Well, your mom, Fiona, she lives at the very bottom of, or you can see Stirling Castle in the town of Stirling, and it is absolutely gorgeous.
Right. Total phenomenal. And, I grew up running in the hills all around that area, and it's so stunning and so poetic that you can't help but feel there's a loftiness to the scenery there. And, a huge part of why I did what I did was just to be out there and enjoying that, because I felt like I was really special and different for getting to enjoy that scenery. Opposed to just kind of sitting in front of the telly or not getting outside,
But, she's married to an Englishman, right? So when we go round, Stirling is a very historic city for lots of reasons, not of which are very pleasant if you're English. And she has great delight in pointing out, this is where we kicked your ass that time. This is where we kicked your ass that time. This is where, so on and on it goes.
Exactly.
Well, considering that when we were there in June, it wasn't getting dark until 10 or 10:30 at night, which would be amazing if you ended work at 5 and you needed to get a brick in. My goodness.
Right.
I'm pretty sure she could probably still kick your arse around Stirling, don't you think?
Oh, that's in no doubt. Yeah, she's always been able to do that.
So that was wonderful. So this year, 2018, I've seen a lot of training stuff going on with Braveheart, with the boot camp. I saw some new kits coming out. You obviously last year you had the book, which was a huge success. And the cover was amazing and had to be defended a little bit. You should talk about that. Yeah. And then, so what's it look like for 2018 and some of those things?
Well, you know, we've got a few camps on as well. We've just finished one for every year we have something called the Braveheart Highland Games, and we have athletes, Braveheart athletes, people we coach, as also people we don't coach, come to San Diego at the end of January each year. Do a lot of great training, a lot of bonding, a lot of little fun, ye olde Scottish activities, tug of war and sandbag carries, and we kind of have a really bonding moment. It's a really nice kickoff to the season for most of us. And then we're running a camp, and we started it last year in Cozumel in Mexico in August. And most people are like, oh my God, are you mad going to Cozumel in August and trying to do some Ironman and half Ironman training? But it's a really great opportunity for athletes who are training and for races in the heat and humidity, and they really rock up to these races the week before and just really ill prepared to cope with what hits them. And so we've partnered up with Mauricio Mendez, the former Xterra world champion and 70.3 pro, who we've coached since he was a junior, and him and his dad and the four of us, we run this camp in Cozumel, and it's mainly Latin American athletes, a lot of Mexicans, Peruvians, Chileans, Argentina. It's fantastic, and we love it. And so that's another camp that we've got coming on. And if folks are interested in joining us, and it's really affordable, and the quality of the food and the drink is great, and so we like going down there.
And I think more importantly, like one of the big things we try and do in our camps is to have a lot of fun. So, and I don't mean that you're not going to get, your ass kicked and you're not going to have hard training. You are, but a huge part of our ethos at Braveheart in general is about creating community. And I think that's why, we really got on, Tom, you and I, because we're after the same thing when it comes to triathlon, right? It's about building a community, a supportive place where people can fail and still get picked up, and where they can really push boundaries and break, have breakthroughs. And I grew up with that community in Scotland, and so we've tried to create that within our Braveheart team, and then also in any camp that you come to. So you're going to have the hardest training you've ever had, but you're going to have the most laughs and the most fun you've ever had. So that's always our goal in a camp.
So you're saying and TSS scores?
When is the date of this year's camp?
The 16th to the 20th of August.
Wow. Okay.
You need to come, Tom. Come on, you know you want to.
I absolutely want to. That sounds fantastic.
Well, a great thing about camp is that it's an all-inclusive. We're at an all-inclusive resort, and the price includes not all food, but in free alcohol for 4 days.
And that's okay with the head coach, that you can consume alcohol and come to this camp?
Absolutely.
That's part of the adversity training.
Listen, I'm the director of entertainment, so I ensure that people have their fair swill at night.
Well, a few years ago, speaking of alcohol, Lesley, I think I was seated at your table next to your mom, and you won some sort of very nice award. And I do believe that the other tables were sort of jealous that you brought some outside beverage to that table, if I do remember. What was that beverage?
Was it? I think I brought some whiskey for the table. Maybe.
I think it was a large bottle of Scotch whiskey. Yes, it was.
Yeah. I just don't call it Scotch, otherwise you'll get Banjoed.
Banjoed means hit by somebody in Scottish.
Oh, okay. We'll make sure we'll start up like maybe a little translation area on the website. So last year you did the book, and we love the book. Our team enjoyed that. We love the book. You went all over promoting it. Tell us about the book. Tell us about how it started. I was really surprised. I mean, I knew that Simon has a PhD, but he's a good writer too.
I know. Who'd have thought it, right?
What do you mean, but? And he's a good writer too. Come on, Tom.
But it was great. And so you want to talk about the book and about the reception of it, and sort of maybe some of the things that would jump out the most?
Yeah. So basically, the reason we came up with the book was because I had kind of gone through this whole rebirth in the sport. I had been really serious as a youngster and was on the national team and all the rest of it, had high hopes of going to the Olympics, but it never transpired. I wasn't a good enough swimmer. I was in the ITU racing circuit and it just wasn't working out. And I got very, very disillusioned because a lot of the coaches I was working with just didn't know how to talk to me as a person, as a young girl, a young 16-year-old girl. And so I lost all my passion for the sport. And, everything was based around data and not about sort of the emotion or passion around it. And so I ended up giving up and retiring at the age of 20. And then getting into acting and, theatre and a lot of stuff that was about self-discovery for me. Who am I as a person? What do I want? Where am I going? And I came to realize that I could actually go on a triathlon journey about, that focused on what I needed rather than, hey, this world champion over here, you have to act like them and be like them in order to be a world champion like them. Which I didn't want to be. I wanted to do it my way. So when I did come back to the sport the second time and got into Xterra, which in and of itself kind of caters to all my passions of mud and grittiness and being out in the environment, I would come home every day from training and I'd be trying out all these different things that I'd sort of was thinking about and I'd learned through acting and whatnot, and I'd speak to Si about it, and I'd be like, babe, I'm trying this, I've been trying that. And, hey, what do you think? And he would get into the neuroscience of it all and say, well, actually, that's super interesting because the reason you do that is because of this, this, and this. And so together we just kind of started to form all of these ideas and theories, and, both him with his experience as a sports psychologist and me as the athlete. And we obviously had a coaching business and still do, where we've coached, hundreds of different athletes, and a lot of them have experienced all the same issues. And so we felt like it was about time that somebody should write something that was actually applicable and usable, that had strategies and was realistic and witty and funny and approachable. So yeah, that's how we came about it. And to be honest, we've just had this great response from people, and not just about their sport, but just how it's impacted their everyday life, their relationships, their business, everything.
And in terms of, we have a few of those books, but where could somebody get that book if they wanted to buy it?
Yeah, so it's called The Brave Athlete, Calm the F Down and Rise to the Occasion. And you can get it at Amazon. And you can also, we've got an Audible version on Amazon as well, so you can listen to it. And we actually, we recorded it, so you'll hear our wonderful voices.
So, it's funny, you have a background. I was surprised by, on social media, the cover, Calm the F Down, and being a rugby player for 22 years, and maybe some of the folks, at least the 4 or 5 people that are listening to this, keep in mind, Lesley, we've never broken 10 people who listen to this podcast. So it's a very small audience. You can say what you want to say. But you played rugby.
I did from the age of 7 to 12 in an all boys team. So, needless to say, I like a wee bit of a challenge. And I've come to realize sort of why that is in many ways. I like adversity, because I think I realize that there's so much growth that comes through facing fears. And, I remember going to watch my brother and wanting to play this game, and my dad was like, "Oh, it's all boys." And I said, "Great, well, I don't care, I'll stand out, great, I'll be special, I'll get to, sort of really rise above the rest and give it a go." So that's how I came to it.
Now, in rugby circles, shockingly, I was a forward, and forwards were considered piano movers, and backs are considered piano players. Were you a forward or a back when you were a wee thing?
I was definitely a back, man. I had the twinkle toes and the ability to kind of move around pretty quick. In fact, I was scrum half quite a bit, just because I was a wee bit smaller. But we've all seen pictures of you, Tom, in your rugby days, and you look a wee bit different.
Yeah, well, the scrum half has to be kind of mean. Has to dig in, get that ball out of the back of the pile, and distribute it. Were you mean at age 8?
Fuck yeah. I mean, anyone that's seen me out in Xterra course knows that I get my mean on when I'm racing.
It's a pleasure to watch. So speaking of you racing, you are the 3-time off-road triathlon world champion.
Right.
Two Xterra races, 1 ITU, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's been hell of a ride, and I think I've had something like 5 silver medals at Worlds as well. So it's I've been around the top of the sport for a number of years now, and the first time you achieve something like that is just a dream come true. I mean, I had wanted to be at that level as an athlete from the age of about 4. So, and when you're never quite making it, you get kind of down on yourself, and you wonder what it is that you're doing wrong. And then all of a sudden you're released from that, and you realize that actually, if you kind of keep pushing through and keep working at it, you can get to the other side, and so it really has served to be an amazing thing for me in my life.
So, and in terms of, I remember seeing a picture of you winning that, on the podium with a big check. The check was big. I don't remember which one, but I was surprised to see that the amount was a scant $20,000. Tell us a little bit about how easy or hard it is to be a working professional in triathlon.
It is so hard, and especially in minority triathlon like Xterra that doesn't have as much coverage. You have to be very clever with how you go about both promoting yourself and building your brand, because you have to create other revenue streams. Otherwise, there's just no way you could afford to live. Because, I mean, that as a world champion, you're earning 20 grand, which, of course, that's then taxed. And how much did it cost you to get there and actually be at the race was probably about 2. And so that's why I started a coaching business back in 2000 and whatever it was, I can't remember, 2005 maybe. And because ultimately I was kind of working in bike shops and earning minimum wage and trying to train full time at all hours of the morning and night. And it just wasn't working out. And I realized that I had the skill of being able to coach people and so much knowledge from my years in sport that I started this up. And it's proven to be, obviously essential to my longevity in the sport, because I've been able to pick and choose which races I want to do. And, I've been able to survive through illness and injury and all of that because I've got a coaching business, to support me. And then a lot of sponsors have stuck with me because of my reach through my coaching, not through my accolades as an athlete. So, it's so difficult as an endurance athlete now because, you've only got so many years in the sport as well, before your body breaks down and what are you left with at the end of that? Your skill set is somewhat limited and where are you going to go? You're just going to go into sales of one of the sponsors that used to rep you. It's like, oh. So, you have to get really clever with how you diversify. Otherwise, you're going to end up sort of working at a bike shop when you're, 50, sort of earning $10 an hour, which is kind of not really where I want it to be.
Well, in terms of being a pro, I'm sure you've heard it before. We've heard it before. Maybe we've even thought it before. Boy, wouldn't it be great to do this full time, be a professional athlete, triathlete. And what's interesting is, I've always said, follow Lesley Paterson around for a week and then let me know what you think. I have woken up to, Leslie's in Los Angeles, had a house in LA and Leslie's in San Diego. And Lesley will get up at 4:30 in the morning and 7:30, hey, I've already, eaten my breakfast and 3 hours on the bike. I'm going to be working all day. It's quite the scene. Tell us what a typical week, when you're training, tell us what a typical, and for a big race, tell us what a typical week is, and maybe that'll convince some people to be pros or probably the opposite.
Totally. So I think that, it's all pretty individual, but I will say this, that most top athletes in our sport are training anywhere from 30 to 40 hours a week. It all depends on what phase you're in, what distance you're racing, and what your body can handle. And certainly at the most, when I was uber duper high volume, which again kind of got me to where I got, but also got me into trouble, was 40 hours a week of training. So, and that's just of the actual training. So a typical day would be, 6 hours of training of varying intensities. So maybe 5K in the pool, 60, 70 miles on the bike with, 7,000 feet of climbing and various intervals. And then running off the bike of, maybe 8 miles of hill repeats or, tempo run or something like that. And then finishing up at, 3 in the afternoon. And then, of course, having to focus on coaching, which is what would earn me my money. So maybe you're going out, you're doing a coaching session, and then you've got your therapies that you have to do in order to actually sustain yourself through that. So maybe you've got, physiotherapy, exercises, you've got massage, which by the way is not pleasant when it's getting done properly. If it's like, oh yeah, you're going for a massage, I'm all, no, that's really fucking painful. So yeah, I mean, pretty intense, right? And then you wake up and you do it all again, day upon day and week upon week. And you're rocking up to rides and runs and swims where people are doing it as a hobby and you're doing it as a job. So that can be challenging because their attitude towards it's different. And then they're generally more fresher than you are. So you're rocking up to things where you're just exhausted thinking, how am I going to get through this workout? And everyone else is bantering and chatting and shouting and then you have all your food to kind of deal with, the right kinds of foods that you need to eat and prep. And it's a lot. I mean, I love it. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't love it. But it's an exhausting endeavor that takes every tiny drop of motivation you could possibly muster up. And then it impacts everybody else in your life as well when you're a professional. It impacts your husband, your wife, your partners, your family. Because, hey, when you go on holiday, you're not really on holiday. You're having to find places to train or eat right, or you're just always grumpy and tired all the time, which is not that pleasant for your partner. So poor Simey-Wimey here has he's had the good times, but he's also seen the other side of it too.
Simon, we're going to get into this a little bit later. There's going to be a whole section just for you to vent.
Don't get me started on triathlete widow syndrome.
This is actually a really good time. We have an athlete, Colette Wheeler, who is up in the LA area, and she actually sent a note and said, I'd love to learn of their training for 70.3 and Olympic tri strategies, how often strength training and how to work it into the week schedule. Do you do low heart rate training at the beginning of each season and for how long before intense runs? Is their diet more paleontology for fat-based training? A lot of questions here, so hold on. Better with carb loading. Would love recommendations for nutrition before, during, and after training and racing.
Dominic, she needs to hire us as a coach. What's she looking for?
I'm gonna make sure I make that recommendation. Then do they prefer a particular nutrition like Infinite or Hammer? And finally, which races are you going to do this year? So there's a lot to cover there, but maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so, I think everyone, first and foremost, certainly everyone that we coach is an individual, right? So they come to the table with varying goals and also varying sort of training and injury histories. So depending on the volume that they've had in the past, that's going to impact how we're going to treat them for the future. So, but in general, our philosophy is that strength is the cornerstone to speed. So a lot of the training that we do in those first few months in any kind of build is focused around strength. So on the bike, we do what's called torque training. And torque training is very, very low cadence work, almost like weight training on the bike. It's about maximum muscle recruitment of the muscle fiber beds. So we do seated drills and standing drills and a lot of things that are going to develop durability of the muscles, because when you get to half iron, it's less about how quick you are and more about how little do I slow down in the second half of the race. So if you don't have the muscle strength to sustain throughout, that's where you're going to falter. So we do a lot of running off the bike, where we're doing things like form hill repeats, so less intense, so lower heart rates, kind of more 80% effort rather than, up at threshold, up at 90% effort. We do a lot of hill repeats on the bike and running off the bike. A lot of things like plyometrics and hill bounds, and again, all about strength and muscle development. With good form. We have our athletes in the gym a couple times a week doing heavy lifting with the prime muscle movers, the deadlifts, the squats, all that good stuff. But then also importantly, functional strength stuff. So a lot of boot camp type work, multi-plane movement, TRX, all that cool stuff for efficiency and injury prevention. So with that strength platform, we start off at lower heart rates, we build the intensity throughout that strength phase, and then we get more into a speed phase and a race specificity phase. So, so that's kind of how we divvy it up. And then on a nutrition side of things, that's such a complex area to attack, because again, everyone is so different with what impacts them. We are finding increasingly that a lot of athletes that come to us have gut issues or mental health issues that chances are related to the gut, or hormone issues that are related to the gut. And Lesley, a huge piece of that.
Leslie, this off season, after there were a lot of Christmas cookies, I think I have a gut issue.
You have a gut issue? Yeah. You and about 90% of the population. But what we're finding now is that, endurance sport can really compromise the integrity of the gut. So when you're exercising at any kind of intensity, your gut lining becomes damaged, and as a consequence, it becomes more permeable, and then toxins get out of your gut, and they're called endotoxins, and they create this inflammation cycle in your body, and that can impact hormones and immune function and a whole host of things. So that's where, focusing on, a healthy diet is important. And by healthy, I mean things that are not going to create inflammation. So that's why a lot of athletes now are gluten-free, because we know that gluten can create issues in the gut that can create inflammation. And then there's a lot of allergens. People are allergic to a lot of things, or at least mildly sort of have reactions to, whether it's dairy or, the lactose or soy or things like that. So I think just ultimately cleaning your diet up is a really key one for any endurance athletes. Because you know what it's like, right? You grab that power bar, you grab that, sugary kind of maltodextrin based drink, and that's all you're ever eating. You get off the bike and you have a sandwich and some chips and a lot of processed foods. Well, you're just creating more damage to an already damaged gut. So, in my perspective, nutrition is more about having good, healthy, whole foods. Now, whether you're more into sort of ketosis or fat burning or fat metabolism, one thing I will say is that we tend to, with our athletes, do periodization of diet. So in your off season and more of the base phases where you're doing lower heart rates, we work on fat adaptation and metabolism. So, using fats more while you're training, or having rides or runs where you're not eating beforehand, and so on, just to have your body more adapted. And then we start to add in carbohydrates at different times. So it's kind of a complex one, I'm afraid, and I've prattled on long enough.
No, it's good. I know you're gluten-free, and you have been for how long?
I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease in 2011, and so I went gluten-free from that point on, because gluten is known to sort of impact Lyme's disease and some of the immune function, autoimmune diseases. So, and it's super easy to do now. I mean, there's gluten-free options everywhere, but I think for athletes that are having gut issues in general, maybe when they're racing or just generally out and about, if they're having to stop in the bushes frequently, as I do, they might just want to try cutting out a few bits and pieces, like potentially gluten or dairy, and seeing how their body reacts to that.
See, celiac disease is, and for folks that have celiac, I feel for them. But it's like a pet peeve of mine, because when I was living in Los Angeles, there'd be a table of 10 people. One time there's a table of 10 people, and 7 of the 10 say they were gluten-free because they had celiac. And when you look at the data, I think it was 1 out of 133 have it. And, you know, doing the math out, and maybe we have to get Simon back with the PhD math. But there was like a 1 out of 4 billion chance or something that was actually possible. It was more like, hey, they just wanted to be particular about, you know, what they like to eat, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I have noticed that people do claim, oh, I have celiac. And I'm like, I don't think you've ever been diagnosed with that.
Here's the deal on that, is that it's a spectrum, right? So your level of intolerance to gluten is on a spectrum. So at one end of the spectrum, you have celiac. At the other end, you have no reaction at all. And unfortunately, it's not just about, hey, can I feel a reaction, i.e., I eat some kind of gluten and automatically feel sick. It's actually what the gluten, what goes on in the gut with gluten and how it can impact your system. And there's a lot more science out now to show that the impact that gluten can have on your system from an inflammatory standpoint. And ultimately, with all of these gut things, it's about reducing inflammation. So when someone is sat there and they say, I'm celiac, it's more, sometimes I'll even say that, because if you don't say that, they don't take you seriously. And so before you know it, you've got a server that's not really giving a shit and saying, oh yeah, no, that's gluten-free. And you find out that it totally isn't. And there's flour in one of the sauces. And for someone like me I'm not celiac, but I'm more sensitive, I could well be on the toilet all morning the next morning because of that. So, you know, on one side, yes, it's become a fad, but it's not necessarily a bad fad as far as I'm concerned. I'm pretty passionate about it because I get fucking the shit kicked out of me all the time by people commenting on this. And the more you get into the science of food and the impact of gut health on the rest of the body's systems, I mean, you'd be shocked at what we're now finding and what the current science is showing us. So I think I think people ultimately are actually quite lazy, because to have a healthy diet is remarkably challenging in this day and age.
You just reminded me of a great video that you did, 3 or 4 years ago, with 10 things that things that triathletes don't say. Is that what that one?
Yeah, totally. That was fun.
We're going to make sure we put a link of that on there. It was very well viewed, and it was super fun, and it gives a sense, I think, of who you are. This from a coaching point of view, I'll definitely say this: if I was looking for a coach, Lesley Paterson would be that coach. And I've called you when I'm racing and I have an issue, and boy, how do I get out of that? So you're actually the only triathlon coach. We have a lot of training plans, free training plans, and we have the sprint program, which is a mentor driven plan with training plans for beginners. But from a coaching point of view, you're the only triathlon coach that we actually have on the California Triathlon.org website. And Simon and I may have to figure out how to upgrade that a little bit this year, but definitely well trusted. This episode is going to go on is going to launch on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And I'm pretty sure that that's on your radar. So I wanted the chance with 9 days to go to maybe any ideas on the plans for Valentine's Day, Simon, or what are you thinking?
Well, the perfect Valentine Day, because it's about your partner on Valentine's Day. So obviously it has to start with some training, which is like my worst Valentine's Day ever. So we'll probably have a bike ride or a run or something. And then one of our big pastimes that we love is going to the movies. So we'll probably see a movie, go out to dinner, just have some nice relaxing time. But if the training can all be done by 9:30 in the morning, that's a win for me as a husband.
Lesley, I have a question. If Simon was to get you a piece of jewelry and there was an option to, say, hawk it for, I don't know, a new frame or some carbon fiber wheels, what do you pick?
Oh man, I tell you, it would probably be chocolate. No. I tell you, if he was going to be a wonderful husband, he would get me a very special ring. And that ring would be the new, it's Halo? No.
Aura.
Aura.
Yeah, Aura.
The new Aura ring.
Have you heard of
that would be a cool piece of jewelry.
Wait, what is that? What is that? Tell me what this is.
You spell it OURA, the Aura ring. We have no financial investment in this. I'm just saying it because it's a really great piece. So it's a ring that you wear 24/7, but it's a heart rate monitor and movement monitor, just like you have in a Garmin. So, and it can, wirelessly uploads to your phone. It measures your sleep and your activity habits and your heart rate variability. It's pretty cool if you're into that kind of stuff.
Oh, it's like also a step counter that it could be used as like a step counter that you use for
like that. Yeah, exactly.
It's accelerometer on it, so that's kind of cool. But it's funny because I think we definitely deal with a lot of athletes that have issues with their partners in terms of Si laughs about the whole triathlon widow, but I tell you what, man, it's such a prevalent issue in our sport that relationships undergo a lot of stress because their partner's in the sport. And it takes a lot of time and time away from family life and can add a lot of stress. So, one of the things we have to deal with as coaches is really, helping our athletes through that and giving them strategies to deal with it. And Valentine's may well be that time where it's like, you know what, I'm going to not train on Valentine's and I'm going to treat my partner who's pissed off enough as it is that I head out for 5 hours on a Saturday for a bike or whatnot.
Yeah, we've referred to it as SAUs. Do you use SAU, spousal approval units?
That's funny.
And so you have to, in the off season, you have to earn your SAUs. So for instance, if you want to do, a short course, maybe that's cleaning out the garage. If you want to go a little longer, that might be painting the house. I mean, it just kind of depends.
Yeah, you're totally right, man. There's got to be some give and take. And I think, as well, encouraging your other half, if they're not into sport, then what passions do they have or hobbies do they have where they can sort of really enjoy and get into, and trying to encourage them to have something for themselves as well. And because I think a lot of partners get miffed if they feel like, they're not the special one anymore, they're not getting time, or and a lot of that's mitigated if they have their own passions too. So you're both off doing some really fun things, and then you come together and you share what it is that you've done.
No, that is a very good point. We cover that all the time because you get athletes. We just did an article on that a couple of days ago where you get athletes who sort of take it to the extreme. And they get burned out. Their spouse gets burned out. Their significant other gets burned out. And for what? No good thing. One last thing that I have on my list. And by the way, I wanted to mention that Colette Wheeler for asking that question. You're going to get a copy of the Brave Athlete sent to you this week, so you'll be able to start enjoying that if you don't have it already. So you had mentioned earlier your involvement in the entertainment industry, right? And I heard a rumor that you own the script or are doing something with All Quiet on the Western Front. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's still going. It's been going for many years, unfortunately. But yeah, we got the rights to the novel some years ago and adapted it into a new screenplay. And we've been trying to get this flipping film off the ground for many a year now. But we're actually moving in some good circles now. We have a new producer on board and a lot of potential there with, some interest from different directors. And we're super hopeful. But that, when you asked about 2018 and what we're doing this year, that is one of our goals, is to really write some more screenplays together and really try and get some projects off the ground and, jump in with 2 feet into the world of film a lot more.
And so do you envision that we're going to be seeing something? I mean, as I think you and I both know, the entertainment business can be cruel and mean. Do you think that that could be coming in, 2019, 2020, or
yeah, I think
time to tell?
2020. Yeah, I think for sure we would love to think that we could have something up, out there, and 2019, 2020. That would be awesome. We're working on a new project at the moment with an Irish film director, which is pretty cool. So we're writing a screenplay for that, and that has some potential to get off the ground maybe a bit quicker too. So we'll see. You've got to diversify, just like in any sort of entrepreneurial business. You've got to continually be sowing the seeds. So, me, Tom, I'm sowing flipping seeds every day, I tell you.
You're a hustler. Before I let you go, I've been spending a lot more time on the trainers Saturday morning watching English Premier League.
Oh, you have?
Soccer. Yeah.
Jiminy crickets. Well, that's most unfortunate for you.
And I watch it, and I wanted to know. I was like, well, is this something that do Scots get into English Premier League? Are you guys into the footy scene?
No, I mean, to be honest, all Scottish people are into football, soccer. Well, we call it football. Yeah, I mean, they'll all watch the English Premier League, but of course, Si's pretty into it. He follows his team, Tottenham.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the English Premier League, not the Premier League. Come on, we'll get that pronunciation right. But the Scots have their own leagues, and there've been some push to try and get some of the top tier teams in that to join the English Premier League. They haven't been successful in doing that, but yeah, it's great to watching overpaid prancers fall down for money. It's quite fun.
And they have these things called transfer fees. Now, this is pretty unusual for most of the sports I follow, but we're talking in some cases $50-100 million for the right to take somebody's contract on from one team to the next, and this is done all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're commodities. They're traded like cattle. So players are sold and bought with $1 or pound, head on their amount on their head, and yeah, some of the top players are going for over £100 million, which is quite silly money, really.
Yeah, well, like I said, I love using having the podcast and being able to ask questions and getting a little bit of knowledge my way. Well, I want to say this. We really appreciate you coming on. In early 2011, you were kind enough to come to the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles and do the Braveheart boot camp. And you've done that every year since 2011. And we're certainly going to have you back in 2018 if your schedule permits.
We need to sort that out, man. People need to get themselves ready for the torture that will bestow them.
And we really appreciate it. And we're going to make sure that we send out with this certainly a note to our now 4,300 members around the country. And so, we couldn't do it without you. And we're going to send 2 of the 23-ounce California Triathlon soup mugs. It's 23 ounces, my friend. So that
excellent.
That can be soup. It can be English tea. Whatever. You could put haggis in there if you'd like.
Gin.
Yeah, gin. Bit of whiskey. Fill that puppy up. You know all about it.
23 ounces of whiskey. Oh my. But we really wanted to say thank you, Lesley. Thank you, Simon. We wish you the best. And if there's anything that we can do, please let us know.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.